Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is NAT or Alia, and NAT stands for Nats and Liam stands for Lem. And I don't mind what you call me as long as it's not anything weird and it's not Lemmy Lem. Although my channel does say Lemmy Lem now, I don't think I'd like anyone to say that to me in public or like ever, because it's like a cursed username that you made as a child, but it's not cursed because I chose it and I kind of like it, but I think it sounds weird when said out loud. But guys, I had homework and I didn't do it because Michelle Sauner's voice is so, it's my D, is so calming and beautiful that I didn't have the chance to actually read and understand her book. And I only read the first chapter and I understood that. But besides that, I'm really behind in my class and I need at least one quote per chapter, and there's 20. So why don't we read it together, guys? Because I have Crying in H-Mart. Well, that's my school yearbook. And I also have the book over there, It Starts With Us. I think it's the one I got. Because there's also It Ends With Us. And that kind of got me confused. But I think It Starts With Us. So let's start with this one. Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Sauner, a memoir. We're starting on chapter 1, guys, because, that's just how it is. There's 20 chapters, and I think the chapters are pretty short compared to because this book is smaller compared to War Bunny, which was kind of weirding me out when I was, like, looking through my stuff, like, my books, when I was taking them to school. I was, like, kind of weirded out at thickness difference. Okay, let's start. I'm gonna add this to the beginning. Guys, wording, this is kind of sad and it talks on touchy subjects. It's like death. I will give you guys another warning because I'm gonna like finish like this first chapter and I'm gonna tell you guys what I think the first chapter is just like death. Like the loss of someone, and sometimes when you think about it, this might hit hard towards someone who's lost someone, or they feel reminiscing emotions towards their own parents or their family. So, warning! Crying in H-Mart. Ever since my mom died, I cry in H-Mart. H-Mart is a supermarket chain that specializes in Asian food. The H stands for Han Arum, a Korean phrase that roughly translates to one arm full of groceries. H-Mart is where parachute kids flock to find the brand of instant noodles that reminds them of home. It's where Korean families buy rice cakes to make taeguk, the beef and rice cake soup that brings in the new year. It's the only place where you can find a giant box of peeled garlic because it's the only place that truly understands how much garlic you'll need for the kind of food your people eat. H-Mart is freedom from the single aisle ethnic section in the regular grocery stores. They don't prop Goya beans next to bottles of sriracha here. Instead, you'll likely find me crying in the banchan refrigerators, remembering the taste of my mom's soy sauce eggs and cold radish soup. Or in the freezer section, holding a stack of dumpling skins, thinking of all the hours that Mom and I spent at the kitchen, folding minced pork and chives into the thin dough. Sobbing near the dry goods, asking myself, am I even Korean anymore if there's no one left to call and ask which brand of seaweed we used to buy? Growing up in America with a Caucasian father and a Korean mother, I relied on my mom for access to her Korean heritage. While she never actually taught me how to cook, Korean people tend to disavow measurements and apply only cryptic instructions along the lines of add sesame oil and taste like mom's. She did raise me with a distinctly Korean appetite. This meant a reverence for good food and a predisposition to emotional eating. We were particular about everything. Kimchi had to be perfectly sour. Samgyup, how do you say that? how do I say this? Guys, now that I'm looking at this, I don't think my Korean is that any good when it comes to reading and pronunciation. Guys, I think I'm failing. Sangyupsal. Oh, guys, I give up.
삼겹살.
Perfectly crisp. Stews had to be piping hot or they might as well have been inedible. The concept of prepping meals for the week was a ludicrous affront to our lifestyle. We chased our cravings daily. If we wanted the kimchi stew for 3 weeks straight, we relished it until a new craving emerged. We are in accordance with the seasons and holidays. When spring arrived and the weather turned, we'd bring our camp stove outdoors and fry up strips of fresh pork belly on the deck. On my birthday, we ate biyongguk, a hearty seaweed soup full of nutrients that women are encouraged to eat postpartum and that Koreans traditionally eat on their birthdays to celebrate their mother. Food was how my mother expressed her love. No matter how critical or cruel she could seem, constantly pushing me to meet her intractable expectations, I could always feel her affection radiating from the lunches she packed and the meals she prepared for me just the way I liked them. I can hardly speak Korean, but in H-Mart it feels like I'm fluent. I fondle the produce and say the words out loud, chamui melon, dalmuji. I fill my shopping cart with every snack that has glossy packaging decorated with a familiar cartoon. I think about the time Mom showed me how to fold the little plastic card that came inside bags of Jolly Pon, how to use it as a spoon to shovel caramel puffed rice into my mouth, and how it inevitably fell down my shirt and spread all over the car. I remember the snacks Mom told me she ate when she was a kid and how I tried to imagine her at my age. I wanted to like all the things she liked, to embody her completely. My grief comes in waves and is usually triggered by something arbitrary. I can tell you with a straight face what it was like watching my mom's hair fall out in the bathtub, or about the 5 weeks I spent sleeping in hospitals. But catch me at H-Mart when some kid runs up double-fisting plastic sleeves, a pin twiggy, and I'll just lose it. Those little rice cake frisbees were my childhood, a happier time when Mom was there, and we'd crunch away on the styrofoam-like disc after school, splitting them like the packaging peanuts that dissolves like sugar on our tongues. I'll cry when I see a Korean grandmother eating seafood noodles in the food court, discarding shrimp heads and mussel net shells onto the lid of her daughter's thin rice bowl, her gray frizzy hair, cheekbones protruding like the tops of two peaches, tattooed eyebrows resting as the ink fades. I wonder what my mom would have looked like in her 70s if she had wound up with the same perm that every Korean grandma gets, as though it were a part of our race's evolution. I'll imagine our arms linked, her small frame leaning against mine as we take the escalator up the food court. The two of us all in black, New York style, she'd say, her image of New York still rooted in the era of breakfast and Tiffany's. She would carry the quilted lettered Chanel purse that she'd always wanted her whole life, instead of the fake ones that she bought on the back streets of Itaewon. Her hands and face would be slightly sticky from the QVC anti-aging creams. She'd wear some strange high-top sneakers, wedges that I disagreed with. Michelle, in Korea, every celebrity wears this one. She'd pluck the lint off my clothes and pick on me. How my shoulders slumped, how I needed new shoes, how I should really start using that argan oil treatment she bought me. But we'd be together. If I'm being honest, there's a lot of anger. I'm angry at this old Korean woman I don't know, that she gets to live and my mother does not. Like somehow this stranger's survival is all related at my loss. That someone my mother's age could still have a mother. Why is she here slurping up spicy jampong noodles and my mom isn't? Other people must feel this way. Life is unfair, and sometimes it helps to irrationally blame someone for it. Sometimes my grief feels as though I've been left in a room alone with no doors. Every time I remember that my mother is dead, it feels like I'm colliding with a wall that won't give. There's no escape. There's a hard surface that I keep ramming into over and over, a reminder of the immutable reality that I will never see her again. H-Marts are usually situated on the outskirts of the city and serve as a secondary center for strip malls of Asian storefronts and restaurants that are always better than the ones found closer to town. We're talking Korean restaurants that pack the tables so full of banchan side dishes that you're forced to play a never-ending game of horizontal Jenga with 12 tiny plates of stir-fried anchovies, stuffed cucumbers, and pickled everything. This isn't like the sad Asian fusion joint by your work, where they serve bell peppers in their bibimbap and give you the stink eye when you ask for another round of wilted bean sprouts. This is the real deal. You know that you're headed the right way because there will be signs to mark your path. As you go farther into pilgrimage, the lettering on the weight awnings slowly begins to turn into symbols that you may or may not be able to read. This is when my elementary grade Korean skills are put to the test. How fast can I sound out the vowels in traffic? I spent more than 6 years going to Hangul Kakyo every Friday, and this is all I have to show for it. I can read the signs for churches, for an optometrist's office, a bank, a couple more blocks in, and we're in the heart of it. Suddenly, it's another country. Everyone is Asian. A swarm of different dialects crisscross like invisible telephone wires. The only English words are hot pot and liquors, and they're all buried beneath a assorted assortment of glyphs and graphies, which an anime tiger or a hot dog dancing next to them. Inside an H-Mart complex, there will be some kind of food court, an appliance shop, and a pharmacy. Usually, there's a beauty counter where you can buy Korean makeup and skincare products with snail mucin or caviar oil, or face mask the Bailey Boast placenta. Whose placenta? Who knows? There will usually be a pseudo-French bakery with weak coffee, bubble tea, and an array of glowing pastries that always look much better than they taste. My local H-Mart these days is in Elkins Park, a town northeast of Philadelphia. My routine is to drive in for lunch on the weekend, stock up on groceries for the week, and cook something for dinner with whatever fresh bounty inspires me. The H-Mart in Elkins Park has 2 stories. The grocery is on the first floor and the food court is above it. You're kidding me. One is dedicated to sushi, one is strictly Chinese. Another is for traditional Korean jjigaes, bubbling soup served in traditional earthenware pots called tteokbakkis, which act as a mini cauldrons to ensure that your soup is still bubbling a good 10 minutes past arrival. Basically, there's a stall for Korean street food that serves up Korean ramen, basically just shinkup ramen with an egg cracked in. Giant steamed dumplings full of pork and glass noodles housed in a thick, cake-like dough, and tteokbokki, chewy, bite-sized, cylindrical rice cakes boiled in a stock with fish cakes, red pepper, and gochujang. A sweet and spicy paste that's one of the 3 mother sauces used in pretty much all Korean dishes. Last is my personal favorite, Korean-Chinese fusion, where serves tangsuyu, glossy sweet and sour orange pork, seafood noodle soup, fried rice, and black bean noodles. Ooh, guys, I have to annotate. I just memorized this. I want to see that scene. The one where she's like, sometimes my grief or like life, sometimes you just irrationally blame someone for it. Hell yeah. I need to buy more tabs. There you go, guys. The food court is a perfect place to watch people. Oh, my bad. The food court is a perfect place to people watch while sucking down salty, fatty jangmyeon. I think about my family who lived in Korea before most of them died, and how Korean Chinese was always the first thing we'd eat when my mom and I arrived in Seoul after a 14-hour flight from America. 20 minutes after my aunt would phone in our order, the apartment bringer would buzz "Food Elise" and MIDI, and up would come a helmeted man fresh off his motorcycle with a giant steel bowl. He'd slide open the metal door and deliver heaping bowls of noodles and deep-fried battered pork with its rich sauce on the side. The plastic wrap on top would be concave and sweating. We'd peel it off and drizzle black, chunky goodness all over the noodles and pour the shiny, sticky, translucent orange sauce over the pork. We'd sit cross-legged on the cool marble floor, slurping and reaching over one another. My aunts and mom and grandmother would jabber on in Korean, and I would eat and listen, unable to comprehend, bothering my mom every so often, asking her to translate. I wonder how many people at H-Mart miss their families. How many are thinking of them as they bring their trays back from the different stalls? If they're eating to feel connected, to celebrate these people through food. Which ones weren't able to fly back home this year, or for the past 10 years? Which ones are like me, missing the people who are gone from their lives forever? At one table was a group of young Chinese students, alone without family at schools in America. They had banded together to take the bus 45 minutes outside the city, into the suburbs of the foreign country for soup dumplings. At another table, there are 3 generations of Korean women eating 3 different types of stew, daughter, mother, and grandmother, dipping their spoons into one another's bowl, reaching over one another's trays, arms in another's faces, pinching at their different banchan with chopsticks. None of them pay any heed or give a second thought to the concept of personal space. There's a young white man and his family. They giggle together to try to pronounce the menu. The son explains to his parents the different dishes they've ordered. Maybe he was stationed in Seoul for the military service or taught English abroad. Maybe he's the only one in his family with a passport. Maybe this will be the moment his family decides it's time to travel and discover these things themselves. There's an Asian guy blowing his girlfriend's mind, introducing her to new worlds of flavors and textures. He showed her how to eat I can't say this. Guys, I'm struggling. There's so many Korean words in this memoir. Maybe because she's Korean, but whatever. My bad. 물냉면. A cold noodle soup that tastes better if you add vinegar and hot mustard first. He tells her how his parents came to this country, how he watched his mom make this dish at home. When she made it, she didn't add zucchini, she stuffed radishes instead. An old man hobbles over to a neighboring table to order the chicken and ginseng porridge that he probably eats here every day. Bells go off for people to collect their orders. Behind the counters, women and visors work without stopping. It's a beautiful, holy place, a cafeteria full of people from all over the world who have been displaced in a foreign country, each with a different history. Where did they come from, and how far did they travel? Why are they all here? To find the galangang, no American supermarket stocks to make the Indonesian curry that their father loves? To buy the rice cake that celebrates Jessa and honor this anniversary of their loved one's passing? To satisfy a craving for tteokbokki on a rainy day, moved by memory of some drunken late-night snack under Pojang matcha tent in Myeongdong? We don't talk about it. There's never so much as a knowing look. We sit here in silence, eating our lunch, but I know we are all here for the same reason. We're all searching for a piece of home or a piece of ourselves. We look for tastes of it in the food we order and the ingredients we buy. Then we separate. We bring the hall back to our dorm rooms or our suburban kitchens, and we recreate the dish that couldn't be made without our journey. What we're looking for isn't available at a Trader Joe's. H-Mart is where your people gather under one odorous roof, full of faith that they'll find something they can't find anywhere else. In the H-Mart food court, I find myself again, searching for the first chapter of the story I want to tell about my mother. I'm sitting next to a Korean mother and her son, who have been unknowingly taking the table next to old waterworks. The kid dutifully gets their silverware from the counter and places it on the on paper napkins for both of them. He's eating fried rice and his mom has solongtang, ox bone soup. He must be in his early 20s, but his mother is still instructing him on how to eat, just like my mom used to. Dip in the onion in the paste. Don't add too much gochujang or it'll be too salty. Why aren't you eating the mung beans? Some days the constant nagging would annoy me. Woman, let me eat in peace. But most days, I knew it was the ultimate display of a Korean woman's tenderness, and I cherished that love. I'd do anything to have that. The boy's mom places pieces of beef from her spoon onto his. He's quiet and looks tired and doesn't talk to her much. I want to tell him how much I miss my mother, how he should be kind to his mom. Remember that life is fragile and she could be gone at any moment. Tell her to go to a doctor and make sure there isn't a small tumor growing inside her too. Guys, I forgot how sad this is. If I start bawling, my bad. I started crying near the ending of We're Bunny, so I might be crying for this one too. Within 5 years, I lost both my aunt and my mother to cancer. So when I go to H-Mart, I'm not just on the hunt for curdlefish and 3 bunches of scallions for $1. I'm searching for memories. I'm collecting the evidence that the Korean half of my identity didn't die when they did. H-Mart is the bridge that guides me away from the memories that haunt me, of chemo head and skeletal bodies and logging milligrams of hydrocodone. It reminds me of who they were before, beautiful and full of life, wiggling Changu honey cracker rings on all 10 of their fingers, showing me how to suck a Korean grape from its skin and spit out the seeds. Damn, guys, that was the end of chapter 1. I don't know how she can say this with like a normal tone in her face, or like a tone when she speaks it so like normally. It's like, girl, if I was saying this, I'd start bawling my eyes out every second because it's like related to me. I'd be like, you know. No wonder she, like, when she pronounces it, she like her well, I'm gonna maybe read chapter 2 because maybe I could put those together. Probably not gonna be that long. If it is long, you guys will see me have 2 goodbyes, 2 different episodes. Chapter 2, Save Your Tears. My mother died on October 18, 2014, a date I'm always forgetting. I don't know why exactly. It was because I don't want to remember, or the actual date seems so unimportant in the grand scheme of what we endured. She was 55 years old. I was 25, an age my mother had assured me for years would be special. It was the same age my mother had been when she met my father. the year they got married, the year she left her home country, her mother, and her two sisters and embarked on a pivotal chapter of her adult life. The year she began the family that would come to define her. For me, it was a year things were supposed to fall into place. It was a year her life ended and mine fell apart. Sometimes I feel guilty about misremembering what had happened. Every fall I have to scroll through the photos I've taken of her gravestone to reconfirm the date and grades, half obscured by the multicolored bouquets I've left these past 5 years. Or I resort to Googling the obituary I neglected to write so I can prepare to willfully feel something that never quite feels like the thing I'm supposed to be feeling. My father is obsessed with dates. Some sort of eternal clock whirs without fail around every impending birthday, death day, anniversary, and holiday. His seek intuitively darkens the week before, and soon he'll inundate me with Facebook messages about how unfair it all is and how I'll never know what it's like to lose your best friend. Then he'll go back to riding his motorcycle around Phuket, where he retired a year after she died, filling the void with warm beaches and street vendor seafood and young girls who can't spell the word problem. What I never seem to forget is what my mother ate. She was a woman of many usuals, half a patty melt on a rye with a side of steak fries to share at the Terrace Cafe after a day of shopping, an unsweetened iced tea with half a packet of Splenda, which she would insist she never used on anything else. Minestrone she'd order steamy hot, or not steaming hot, with extra broth from the Olive Garden. On special occasions, half a dozen oysters on the half shell with champagne mignonette and steamy hot French onion soup from Jack's in Portland. She was maybe the only person in the world who would request steamy hot fries from McDonald's drive-thru in earnest. Jangpong spicy seafood noodle soup with extra vegetables from Cafe Seoul, which she always called Seoul Cafe, transposing the syntax of her native tongue. She loved roasted chestnuts in the winter, though they gave her horrible gas. She liked salted peanuts with light beer. She drank 2 glasses of Chardonnay almost every day, but would get sick if she had a third. She ate spicy pickled peppers with pizza. At Mexican restaurants, she ordered finely chopped jalapenos on the side. She ordered dressings on the side. She hated cilantro, avocados, and bell peppers. She was allergic to celery. She rarely ate sweets, with the exception of the occasional pint of strawberry Haagen-Dazs. A bag of tangerine jelly beans, or 1-2 seized chocolate truffles around Christmas time, and a blueberry cheesecake on her birthday. She rarely snacked or took breakfast. She had a salty hand. I remember these things clearly because that was how my mother loved you, not through the white lies and constant verbal affirmation, but in subtle observations of what brought you joy, pocketed away to make you feel comforted and cared for without even realizing it. She remembered if you liked your stews with extra broth, if you were sensitive to spice, if you hated tomatoes, if you didn't eat seafood, if you had a large appetite. She remembered which banchan side dish you emptied first so the next time you were over, it'd be set with a heaping double portion, served alongside the various other preferences that made you, you. In 1983, my father flew to South Korea in response to an aide in the Philadelphia Inquirer that read simply, Opportunity Abroad. The opportunity turned out to be a training program in Seoul selling cars to the U.S. military. The company booked him a room at the Naija Hotel, a landmark in Yongsan district, where my mother worked at the front desk. She was supposedly the first Korean woman he ever met. They dated for 3 months, and when the training program ended, my father asked my mother to marry him. The two of them made their way through the 3 countries during the mid-80s, living in Misawa, Heidelberg, and Seoul again, where I was born. A year later, my father's eldest brother Ron offered him a job at his truck brokerage company. The position afforded stability and an end to my family's biannual intercontinental uprooting, and so we immigrated when I was just a year old. We moved to Eugene, Oregon, a small college town in the Pacific Northwest. The city sits near the source of the Willamette River, which stretches 150 miles north from the Calpuya Mountains outside of town to its mouth on the Columbia. These long sentences are going to kill me, guys. Carving its way between mountains, the Cascade Range to the east and the Oregon Coast Range to the west. The river defines a fertile valley where tens of thousands of years ago a series of Ice Age floods surged southwest from Lake Missoula, traveling over eastern Washington and bringing with their floodwaters rich soil and volcanic rock that now shore up the layers of its earth. Alluvial plains fit for a vast variety of agriculture. The town itself is coated in green, hugging the banks of the river and spreading out up into the rugged halls and pine forests of central Oregon. The seasons are mild, drizzly, and gray for most of the year, but give way to a lush, unspoiled summer. It rains incessantly, and yet I never knew an that's what that's called? Oregonian to carry an umbrella. Eugenians are proud of their regional bounty, and we're passionate about incorporating local, seasonal, and organic ingredients well before it was back in vogue. Anglers are kept busy in fresh waters, fishing for wild Chinook salmon in the spring and steelhead in the summer, and sweet Dungeness crab is abundant in the estuaries year-round. Local farmers scatter every Saturday downtown to sell homegrown organic produce and honey, foraged mushrooms, and wild berries. The general demographic is of hippies who protest Whole Foods in favor of local co-ops where Birkenstocks weave hair wraps to sell at outdoor markets and make their own nut butter. There are men with birth names like Herb and River and women called Forrest and Aurora. When I was 10, we moved 7 miles outside the city, out past the Christmas tree farms and the hiking trails of Spencer Boot Tip Park, to a house in the woods. It sat on nearly 5 acres of land where flocks of wild turkey roamed picking for insects in the grass, and my dad could drive his riding mower in the nude if he wanted to, shielded by thousands of ponderosa pines, no neighbors for miles. Out back there was a clearing where my mother grew rhododendrons and kept the lawn kept. Beyond it, the land gave away to sloping hills of stiff grass and red clay. There was a man-made pond filled with muddy water and soft silt, and salamanders and frogs to chase after, catch, and release. Blackberry bramble grew wild, and in the early summer during the burning season, my father would take it with a large pail of gardening shears and clear new pathways between trees to form a circuit he could round on his dirt bike. Once a month, he'd ignite the burn piles he'd gathered, letting me squeeze the lighter fluid on their bases, and we'd admire his handiwork as the 6-foot bonfires went up in flames. I loved our new home, but I also came to resent it. There was no neighborhood children to play with, no convenience stores or parks within biking distance. I was stranded and lonely, an only child with no one to talk to or turn to but my mother. Left with her in the woods, I was overwhelmed by her time and attention, a devotion that I learned could be an auspicious privilege and have smoothering consequences. My mother was a homemaker. Making a home had been her livelihood since I was born, and while she was vigilant and protective, she wasn't what you would call coddling. She was not what I referred to as mommy mom, which was what I envied most of my friends for having. A mommy mom is someone who takes an interest in everything her child has to say, and even when there is no actual way she gives a shit, who whisk you away to the doctor when you complain of the slightest ailment, who tells you they're just jealous if someone makes fun of you, or you'll always look beautiful to me even if you don't, or I love this when you give them a piece of crap for Christmas. But every time I got hurt, my mom would start screaming, not for me, but at me. I couldn't understand it. When my friends got hurt, their mothers scooped them up and told them it was going to be okay, or they went straight to the doctor. White people were always going to the doctor, but when I got hurt, my mom was livid, as if I had maliciously damaged her property. Once, when I was climbing up a tree in the front yard, the notch I used to hoist myself up gave out from under my foot. I slid 2 feet, dragging the skin of my bare stomach on the coarse bark as I tried to regain my footing, falling 6 feet onto my ankle, crying, ankle twisted, shirt ripped, my stomach scraped and bloody on either side. I was not scooped into my mother's arms and taken to a medical professional. It's described. Instead, she descended upon me like a murder of crows. How many times mommy say, stop climbing that tree? Uma, I think I sprained my ankle, I cried. I think I have to go to the hospital. She hovered over my crumpled body, screeching relentlessly as I writhed among the dead leaves. I could have sworn she threw a few kicks in. Mom, I'm bleeding. Please don't yell at me. You will have this scar forever. I read that wrong. Why did I mess up forever? You will have this scar forever. What the hell does that mean? I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I apologized over and over again, sobbing dramatically, big fat tears and insistent stuttering wails. I pulled myself toward the house with my elbows, gripping the dry leaves and cold dirt as I stiffly dragged my limp leg forward. I go waisu. That's enough. Hers was tougher than tough love. It was brutal, industrial strength. A sinewy love that never gave to an inch of weakness. It was a love that saw what was best for you 10 steps ahead and didn't care if it hurt like hell in the meantime. When I got hurt, she felt it so deeply. It was as though it was her own afflictions. She was guilty only of caring too much. I realize this now, only in retrospect. No one in this world would ever love me as much as my mother, and she would never let me forget it. Stop crying! Save your tears for when your mother dies. This was a common proverb in my household. In place of the English idioms my mother never learned, she coined a few of her own. Mommy's the only one who will tell you the truth, because Mommy is the only one who ever truly loves you. Some of the earliest memories I can recall are of my mother instructing me to always save 10% of yourself. What she meant was that no matter how much you thought you loved someone or thought they loved you, you never gave all of yourself. Save 10%, always, so there was nothing to fall back on. Even from Daddy I saved, she would add. My mother was always trying to shape me into the most perfect version of myself. When I was an infant, she pinched my nose because she was worried it was too flat. In my elementary years, she feared I was too short, so every morning before school, she'd instruct me to hold the bars of my headboard and pull my legs in an effort to stretch them. If I furrowed my brow or smiled too widely, she smoothed my forehead with her fingers and instructed me to stop making wrinkles. If I walked with a slouch, she'd push a palm between my shoulder blades and command, "Okay, what the fuck? Okay, Pico, shoulders straight." She was obsessed with appearances and spent hours watching QVC. She phoned in orders for cleansing conditioners, specialty toothpaste, and jars of Cabio oil scrubs, serums, moisturizers, toners, and anti-aging creams. She believed in QVC products with the seal of a conspiracy theorist. If you questioned the legitimacy of a product, she'd erupt in its defense. My mom was wholeheartedly convinced that Super Smile toothpaste made our teeth 5 shades lighter, and Dr. Dennis's beautiful complexion 3-piece skincare kit shaved 10 years off our faces. Her bathroom was an island full of glass pots and tinted jars she dipped, dabbed, rubbed, patted, and smoothed onto her face, religiously following a 10-step skincare regimen that included a microcurrent wand for electrocuting wrinkles. Every night from the hall, I could hear the clapping of her palms against her cheeks and the hum of pulsing electricity, supposedly tightening her pores as she sipped and sapped, then applied layer after layer of cream. Meanwhile, boxes of Proactive toners piled up, shoved beneath the cabinet of my bathroom sink. Bristles of a Clarisonic cleansing brush remained dry and mostly unused. I was too impatient to keep up with any kind of regimen my mother tried to impose, a source of contention that would escalate throughout my adolescence. Perfection was infuriating, her meticulousness a complete enigma. She could own a piece of clothing for 10 years and it would look like it'd never been worn. Never speak of lint on a coat, a pill on a sweater, or a single scuff on a patent leather shoe, whereas I was reprimanded constantly for destroying or abruptly losing even those belongings I most dearly cherished. She applied the same fastidiousness to the household, which she kept immaculate. She vacuumed daily, and once a week she would have me run a duster along all the baseboards as she doused the hardwood floors in oil and smoothed them over with a washcloth. Living with my father and me must have felt like living with 2 oversized toddlers hell-bent on destroying her perfect world. Often my mother would erupt over some small disarray, and the 2 of us would look out at the same horizon and have no clue what was unclean or misplaced. If either of us spilled something on the carpet, my mother would react as though we had set it on fire. Instantaneously, she'd release a pained wail, rush to collect the QVC carpet cleaning sprays from under the sink, and push us aside for fear we would spread the stain. Then we would just hover over her in embarrassment, watching stupidly as she dabbed and sprayed at her errors. The stakes got higher when my mother began amazing various collections of precious, delicate things. Each set had a special place in the home where it was neatly displayed and organized. Merry Angel Braid miniature painted teapots lining the bookshelves in the hallway, porcelain ballerinas on the entryway credenza, the 1 1/3 position missing 2 fingers, a daily reminder of the consequences of my oafishness, and blue and white Dutch houses on the kitchen windowsill filled with gin, 2 or 3 with corks sloppily dug into in some drunken stupor, to remind my father of his. Crystal Swarovski animals mounted the glass shelves of the living room armoire. Every birthday and Christmas, a new glistening swan, porcupine, or turtle found its place on the wall. adding to the prismatic light that projected across the living room in the early morning. I think I like this angle better. Hooray! Sometimes when my parents would leave me at home with a sitter, I would line up her figurines on a serving tray and cautiously wash each animal in the sink with dish soap, then dry them off with paper towels. I would dust the shelves beneath and clean them with Windex and try my best to reorganize them for memories, hoping my mother would return and reward me with affection. No, it's tilted. I developed this compulsion to clean as a sort of protection ritual performed when I even felt the slightest bit abandoned, an eventuality that tormented my young imagination. I was haunted by nightmares and an intense paranoia of my parents dying. I imagined robbers breaking into our homes and envisioned their murders in horrible detail. If they returned home late from a night out, I was convinced they got into a car accident. I was plagued by recurring dreams of my father, impatient with traffic, attempting to navigate a faulty shortcut that led to their car off of the edge of the Ferry Street Bridge, plummeting them into the Willamette River, where they would drown, unable to escape through the doors due to the water pressure. Judging by her positive reaction to the weekly episode of the duster and baseboards, I concluded that if my mother returned to an even cleaner home, she would promise never again to leave me behind. It was my sad attempt to try to win her over. Once on a vacation in Las Vegas, my parents left me alone in the hotel room for a few hours so they could gamble at the casinos. I spent the entire time tidying the room, organizing my parents' luggage, and wiping down the surfaces with hand towel. I couldn't wait for them to return and see what I had done. I sat on my rollaway cot and just beamed at the door, waiting to see their faces, oblivious to the fact that housekeeping would come the next morning. When they returned, invisible to the changes, I quickly moved across the room, dragging them along with me as I pointed out my good deeds one by one. I waited desperately for other such opportunities to shine, and in my search for favorable proving grounds, discovered that our shared appreciation of Korean food served not only as a form of mother-daughter bonding, but also offered a pure, abiding source of her approval. It was at a Norwegian fish market on a summer trip to Seoul that this notion truly blossomed. Norwegian is a wholesale market where you can choose live fish and seafood from the tanks of different vendors and have them sent up to be prepared in a number of cooking styles at restaurants upstairs. My mother and I were with her two sisters, Nami and Umi, and they had picked out pounds of abalone, scallops, sea cucumbers, amberjacks, octopus, and king crab to eat raw and boiled in spicy soups. Upstairs, our table filled immediately with banchan, dotting around the boudin burner for our stew. The first dish to arrive was sanakji, live, long-armed octopus, a plate full of gray and white tentacles wriggled before me, freshly served from their head, every suction cup still pulsing. My mom took hold of one, dredged it through some gochujang and vinegar, placed it between her lips, and chewed. She looked at me and smiled, seeing my mouth agape. "Try it," she said. In marked contrast to the other domains of parental authority, my mother was loose when it came to the rules regarding food. If I didn't like something, she never forced me to eat it, and if I ate only half of my portion, she never made me finish the plate. She believed food should be enjoyed and that it was more of a way to expand your stomach and to keep eating when you were full. Her only rule was that you had to try everything once. Eager to please her and impress my aunts, I balanced the liveliest leg I could find between my chopsticks, dipped it into the sauce as my mother had, and slipped it into my mouth. It was briny, tart, and sweet, with just a hint of spice from the sauce, and very, very chewy. I gnashed the tentacle between my teeth as many times as I could before swallowing, afraid it would suction itself to my tonsils on the way down. Good job, baby! Aigo yapu. I can't say this, guys. Aigo yapu. My aunts exclaimed, "That's a pretty girl." My family lauded my bravery. I radiated with pride, and something about that moment set me on a path. I came to realize that while I struggled to be good, I could excel at being courageous. I began to delight in surprising adults with my refined palate and disgusting my inexperienced peers with what I would discover to be some of nature's greatest gifts. By the age of 10, I had learned to break down a full lobster with my bare hand and a nutcracker. I devoured steak tartare, pâtés, sardines, snails baked in butter and smothered with roasted garlic. I tried raw sea cucumber, abalone, and oysters on the half shell. At night, my mother would roast dried cuttlefish on a camp stove in the garage and serve it with a bowl of peanuts and a sauce of red pepper paste mixed with Japanese mayonnaise. My father would tear it into strips and we'd eat it watching television together until our jaws were sore, and I'd wash it all down with small sips from one of my mother's Coronas. Neither one of my parents graduated from college. I was not raised in a household with many books or records. I was not exposed to fine arts at a young age or taken to any museums or plays at established cultural institutions. My parents wouldn't have known the names of authors I should read or foreign directors I should watch. I was not given an old edition of Catcher in the Rye as a preteen, copies of Rolling Stone records on vinyl, or any kind of instructional material from the past that might help give me a leg up to cultural maturity. But my parents were worldly in their own ways. They had seen so much of the world and had tasted what it had to offer. What they lacked in high culture, they made up for by spending their hard-earned money on the finest of delicacies. My childhood was rich with flavor: blood sausage, fish intestines, caviar. They loved good food, to make it, to seek it, to share it, and I was an honorary guest at their table. It's the end of chapter 2, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you guys have a wonderful, spectacular day. I'm gonna go write these down into my school stuff, and then I'm gonna continue in a minute. And I think I'm gonna need more post-it notes, but I'm gonna go do that. I'm so grateful for all of you guys that are tuning in and watching my videos, and I appreciate it very, very much, even though my quality of videos is not as high as Vinny's, because I don't have materials. I only have my phone, and that's kind of it. But thank you guys so much for watching today. I wish you guys have a wonderful, spectacular day, and I can't wait for the next video, which is probably gonna be later today. So thanks for coming. Stay safe.